Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode on Flip Your Life podcast, episode number 2. Back again, episode number 2, my man. What's up?
What's going on? Hey, man, I'm so excited to do that. Hey, last week, first one dropped, and it was amazing.
I know. I was so excited. I was like sitting next to my wife. I was like, oh, it's up. And you were like listening to it. And I was like, man, it's so funny because I actually didn't know like kind of how I was going to start with the music and everything. I was like, oh, this is so awesome. Great choice of music and vibes there. So,
Figured I'd surprise you a little bit.
yeah, I know. But guys, we are excited. We're excited to share with you our second episode. And this one, honestly, it's so funny. I think this is probably the most sought out question, at least that I know of, as people are trying to get started in real estate investing, is like, how do you get in this game? Like, how do you get into real estate? What are some ways to get into real estate investing? So guys, that's what we're going to talk about. Now, we both, if I'm not mistaken, we both kind of got introduced into real estate through one of the strategies called wholesaling. So we're actually going to talk a little bit about what is wholesaling. That's actually how we got involved. But as our journey has unfolded, we've learned really a number of ways that you can get started real estate investing. And it doesn't necessarily have to require you having $50, $60, $100,000 cash or having to go to a bank and get a loan to do, there are a lot of creative ways and a lot of ways to get started. So we'll just jump right into really what is wholesaling. So yeah, Vaughn, you want to take it away?
Yeah, man. So in last episode, we talked about how I got started, and just like you mentioned, I didn't have any money. At least the amount of money to go out and just start buying up a bunch of properties. So a lot of people that think when they think real estate investor, they think they got to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to get going. So if you don't really know, you don't know what you don't know. Right. So it's getting around the right people, putting yourself around the people that are doing it and finding out how you can get started. And for us, when I said, hey, I'm going to be all in on real estate and see how I can get involved in this thing, that's when we found wholesaling or signing a contract. Right. And you don't have to have any money to do that. As long as you have time and you have commitment and you're willing to take action and do something, you can make it happen. Right. So that's what we did. We started out going driving for dollars, looking for properties to get under contract. Right. So with that being said, explain to them a little bit on what wholesaling is. Yeah,
no. And I love this actually, because when I heard about wholesaling, I was like, what? This is crazy. Like people are really doing this. Like there's no way people are really doing this. This is insane. But then I actually had to take a step back and go, wow, like this happens everywhere, all over. So guys, I'm going to explain to you a little bit what is wholesaling in the most simple, fundamental way, but then also kind of really paint the picture for you that it isn't really that crazy and weird. Like everything in our lives involves wholesaling. So wholesaling is very simple. You are looking for someone who is wanting to sell their property. And actually, you can wholesale properties that are on market. So I used to say you want to look for off-market properties, but that's just a type of way of building your wholesaling business. You can actually wholesale deals that are on market. But essentially, you're just looking for someone who wants to sell their property, and you have a conversation with what we call the seller on a price that they agree to, that you guys both agree to, that they're willing to sell their house, and you go under contract. And what it means to go under contract is literally just what it means. You write up a purchase and sell agreement, a contract, with a purchase price that you guys both agree to. Now, a lot of people, again, they think, well, are you buying the house then if you're going on a contract? And that is the unique thing about wholesaling in terms of real estate, is you are not buying the property yourself. What you're doing next is you are looking for an end buyer. Now, a lot of times in wholesaling, that end buyer is like a real estate investor, a fix and flipper, or buy and hold, or what have you. But it really can be really anybody, just an end buyer, someone who's going to be the end person at that transaction buying the property. Because I've actually, and I'm sure you have as well, I've actually wholesale deals to like retail buyers. Actually, one of my biggest deals was to a retail buyer, and it started off obviously as a wholesale transaction. But there's that end buyer, and what you do is you go to that end buyer and you say, "Hey, look, end buyer, whoever that person may be, I have this property available for sale for purchase, and this is the purchase price. Now, let's say you have it under contract. Let's just make numbers easy." For $50,000 with the seller. The seller agreed to sell their property to you for $50,000. Then you find an end buyer and you say, hey, I have this property available for $60,000, right? Now that end buyer, if they're obviously, wise and know what they're doing in real estate, they're going to do their own due diligence, right? So they're going to go, okay, wow, I could buy this thing for $60,000, and then they're going to do their underwriting and look at their numbers. Let's say, again, just to make numbers easy, it's going to be a $40,000 rehab. They'll be all in $100,000, but based on comps in the area, that thing could sell for 170, 175. So they're going to go, man, I could buy this thing for $60,000, put 40 into it, be all in about $100,000, and I could sell this thing for 160. Oh, I'll take that all day. Let's go. So you go under contract, you write an agreement with them for them to buy it, which we call an assignment contract. You're assigning the rights for them to buy that property that you have under contract with the seller. And what happens is you bring both of those contracts to a closing attorney or a title company, depending on whatever state you're in. Some states are title states, some states are closing attorney or attorney states. It's essentially the same thing, just two different types of entities that are doing the transaction. But basically, they're going to look at those contracts and they're going to say, wow, okay, so there's a contract with the seller for $50,000 and then one with a buyer for $60,000. So the buyer's going to bring that $60,000. Guys, this is literally how this works. The buyer brings that $60,000. And what happens is the closing attorney or the title company, they disperse $50,000 to the seller, right? Because the buyer now gets the property, right? He gets the deed of the property. He owns it. He bought it for $60,000. That's what you guys were under contract for. And the seller gets what they wanted, right? The $50,000 that they agreed to. But wait a minute, what about that $10,000 in the middle? Well, as you may know, as you can tell by this transaction, that $10,000 goes to you, the individual who put that deal together, or in other words, assigned the property or wholesale that deal to that end buyer. So that is wholesaling. And really quick, just to paint the picture, guys, everything in your life is wholesale. I didn't realize this because when I first heard about wholesaling, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is insane. Like this. But then when I thought about it, everything is wholesaling. The hats that Vaughn and I are wearing. If we bought these hats, let's just say at H&M for, $5.99, they didn't buy the hats for $6, right? They bought it at a wholesale price, right? Maybe for $1 or 80 cents or whatever. And then they're selling it to an end buyer, which would be us, retail, at a retail price, right? Same thing with everything, a car. You go to a car and you buy a car for $50,000 or $30,000 or $20,000. The dealership didn't buy it for that, right? They bought it at a lower price at a wholesale, whether it's at an auction or wherever they bought it from. And then they're selling it retail. Same thing with your shirt. Same thing with just everything in your life. There's a wholesale that some company or business or person buys, and then they upsell it. They sell it at a retail to make a profit in the middle. People just don't realize you can do that with real estate, right? So
absolutely.
Anyway, it's absolutely.
It's like you said, it's almost like being, I hear a lot of people reference it as the middleman, right?
Yeah.
I like to call it the connector, because all we're doing is connecting sellers and buyers.
Yes.
Right. And because we're doing that, it's not just making the difference, we're earning the difference.
Yes.
So wholesaling is a job. It is a strategy. It is an investing strategy. So we are investing time by finding the deals. And that's one of the things that, a lot of wholesalers, and the term wholesaling has kind of somewhat gotten a negative connotation, right? Because there's a lot of people out there doing it the wrong way and, not being open, honest, and transparent with the sellers. But if you do things the right way, you're a connector, right? You're helping them find a buyer if you can't take the property down yourself.
Yes.
Right. So I was very upfront when I started wholesaling is that, hey, we're coming in here and we're, negotiating this agreement. Our job is to get you what you want or at the best price possible, as long as it's a fair, amount, fair to the seller and fair to me.
Yeah.
And then we can get that property under contract based on the number that we agreed upon. And then our job as a wholesaler, right, is to go out and find a buyer that's willing to pay more than what we have it under contract for. Absolutely. And we make the difference. And as you get better and better at being a wholesaler and negotiating contracts and getting sellers to know, like, and trust you, the lower you can get that property under contract for, the more money you're going to make on the back end. So as a wholesaler, we make our money on the buy, right? We make our money on the amount that we get that contract or that property under contract for.
Right.
So it's our job to build that rapport, to get them to know, like, and trust us as a person, as a business, but also make sure that we're giving them a fair price. And we'll get into this a little bit later, and how we can be creative, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a cash offer and things such as that.
Exactly.
But our number one goal as a wholesaler is to provide a solution to the problem that they're having.
Yes. And I want to talk about that, because that's what was going through my mind as you're talking, is like, you got to understand that there's value that you're bringing to the marketplace, right? And in business, you get paid for the value that you bring, right? So that's why you could have two people that are salesmen, but one person's making more. Is because that person is adding more value in the marketplace that's allowing him to make more income, right? It's not like a just 9 to 5 or job where you're just getting paid more because you're on the clock longer. In business, it's adding value. So the reason why we can make that kind of income, because you might be thinking, man, when I first got started wholesaling, it's kind of a mindset shift. You start making 15,000, 20,000, you start kind of like, oh man, this is like, wow, man, I'm making 20 grand on this. And I didn't even buy the house. Sometimes, dude, there have literally been deals where I've made $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 and I never met the seller. I never met the buyer and I never went to closing. And sometimes it's just a mindset. You start thinking like, man, gosh, this is crazy, right? Like what value am I bringing? Well, the value that you're bringing is you're serving people on both sides of a real estate transaction. Imagine there are people that need you. There are people that are waiting for you to call them because they do not want to sell on the market. They do not want to sell with a realtor and pay 6% fees or whatever the fees that they're going to pay. And sometimes they're just in a predicament where they just need to sell now. They need to sell for cash. They need to sell the property as is, and they need it quick, right? But they don't know all these they don't know, the game of real estate investing and how to reach out to an investor. Like, where do you even start with that? They don't know how to contact an investor and, have a cash offer price and all this thing. They just know that there's a house that they have that a lot of times could be a problem property, especially if they inherited the property and they have to pay taxes on it and things like that. So you being able to provide a solution, like Vaughn just said, where you call that individual and you say, wow, so you just inherited this property and you don't have the time, the resources or anything to be able to renovate, to fix it up, but you're going to have to pay taxes on this thing now. This thing is honestly taking money away from your family now. Now it's a problem. It's a liability, not an asset, right? You can now provide them a solution by saying, you know what? Let me help you find someone who could pay what you are asking on this property, or let me find someone who could buy this property, right? Now, that's not specifically what you're saying, but that's how you're approaching it as you're talking to this individual. Is you are giving them a solution to where you're finding someone who can buy this property for them. Like Vaughn said, you're a connector. And then, guys, here's the flip side. Not, hint, flip your life. A lot of metaphors on flipping here. But here on the flip side, working with the buyer, you're providing a solution too. I had to have a certain mindset about, because sometimes when I first got started, there's a thing with wholesalers and flippers sometimes where like, maybe the fix and flipper will buy it and he'll fund the deal, he'll renovate the deal, do all this stuff and make 30 grand. That's still a great payday, obviously, 30,000. But then maybe the wholesaler made almost just as much or sometimes even more wholesaling the property. But here's the reality. You are providing value to a buyer because guess what? Yeah. They spent zero time and zero money finding this deal. You have a business model where you are putting in time, you're putting in effort, you are sourcing these individuals, you're having conversations, building rapport. You're working with these sellers, you're getting it under contract, you're doing all these things. You have softwares that you pay for.
Yeah, man, that's what wholesaling is, and I'm glad you say that about sourcing deals because I kind of look at wholesaling. I personally don't like the term wholesaler. I've never really called myself a wholesaler. Maybe when I first started because that's what I knew. But I think just because of the negative connotation that comes along with that term, I've always had the mindset that I'm a real estate investor, right? Yes. So let's talk about that. So wholesaling, is wholesaling investing? And I think you really have to have that mindset that you are an investor when you're wholesaling because you're investing your time, you're investing your money, right? And I say it might not be a lot of money, but sweat equity into finding these properties and sourcing off-market deals. Right. And so the way that we make money through a wholesale deal or an assignment is being able to get in touch with that seller, be a problem solver, provide them with a solution, all while building rapport, building a relationship, and then getting that property under contract for the lowest amount possible. That's a skill set, right? Yep. That time investment into meeting that seller or finding that property, finding the seller, getting in touch with that seller, meeting the seller, and then turning around and going to find a buyer, that's time. And when you scale and you grow beyond, 1-2 deals a year, even beyond 1 or 2 deals a month, that's a process. So I look at my business because we usually have 15 to 20 properties in escrow a month. I look at us as it's more of a sales and marketing company, right?
Absolutely.
So the number one thing that we do when we come in the office Monday through Friday is we're sourcing properties. We're looking for off-market properties, looking for people that want to raise their hand or will raise their hand and say, I'm interested in selling my property or are we consider an offer, right?
Right.
And how do we do that? We're doing that multiple ways, and still our number one lead source, it comes from the same process that I used when I first started, and that's driving for dollars.
Yeah.
Is getting out there, boots on the ground, driving around, looking for physically distressed properties in the right areas that I know if I can get a hold of the owner of that property, the seller of that property, and if they're interested in selling and they're motivated, that I will be able to make some money off that property. So it is a process. It's a skill set that we've built as wholesalers or real estate investors to be able to source properties. And like you said just a minute ago, the buyers, we're doing the buyers a favor, because most of the buyers that we're selling to, whether they be landlords or fix and flippers or whatnot, either have full-time jobs, even if that full-time job is flipping or being a landlord, and they don't have the time or the wherewithal to want to go out and try to source these deals. So they rely on people like us to find them properties and give them a constant deal flow.
Yep. Exactly.
So we deserve to be paid for that.
Right. Exactly.
And a lot of times we're making just as much money as they make on a flip.
Right.
And sometimes even more. So one of the first things that I do when I'm building my buyers list and we're vetting buyers is making sure that they have no problem with us making money.
Nice.
Right. So if I go to a closing and they see that we're making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and that bothers them, they probably don't need to be on my buyers list, because I've earned that money just as much as they are earning it when they flip the property.
Absolutely. So. No, I love that. And, and guys, there's a lot that we're going to talk about when it comes to wholesaling, and we'll come out with other episodes on, how do you go about a wholesaling business? Where do you start? What are some strategies? How do you market? How do you talk to sellers? How do you talk to buyers? How do you find buyers? There's so many different aspects, because at the end of the day, wholesaling is very, very simple. It is a very simple process, but it is not easy. It's not easy. And that's where people really get the disconnect, is that this isn't a get rich quick, right? Although you can, get rich fairly fast in a sense of, making, a higher income in a way. But it's not a get rich quick scheme. This is a very wealth building, slow process that also, I believe, is a stepping stone into bigger and better and more time freedom and passive ways of building a real estate investing business. Because at the end of the day, wholesaling, if you are operating as a wholesaler yourself, it is still another job. It's a very high paying job, but also the key is turning that into a business. So you can also, scale that. You can turn into a business to where it becomes automated, and you can put people in place and allow them to shine and do what they do best. And you can step away and you can have an actual business going. But at the end of the day, when you look at real estate as a whole, the goal is how can you create a lifestyle around you being able to have time freedom, you being able to go after, passions and different visions and goals you have in your life without necessarily having to have all the hats on and running around like, and eating up so much of your time. So what we're going to do is really transition into wholesaling. In my mind, I feel like it doesn't matter what real estate class, your asset class you're in, like whether you're in commercial, whether you're in residential, everybody I feel like should have wholesaling a part of your business, because at the end of the day, it is the art of sourcing the deal. Anything that we flipped, the rental property that we own, like everything came from the wholesaling part of the business, right? You get to cherry pick what you want. You get to say, oh, wow, okay, this lead is great. And, am I going to flip this? Am I going to hold on to this as rental? Am I going to either just assign that you have that opportunity rather than kind of Vaughn saying there's nothing wrong with that model, and everyone has to start.
Well, look at it this way. If you don't have the deal flow, you have nothing else. You have no investing opportunities, right? So there is no rentals. There is no fix and flips. There is no owner finance deals. There's none of that if there's not a constant, steady flow of deals, right? So in our company now, my company, we're beyond just wholesaling, but that's where I put the main focus. That's the most important part of my company, because that's what delivers the deals. That's what keeps the deals flow coming in. But you can grow a lot of money, amass a lot of wealth in a short period of time through wholesaling. But what we really want to amass is that generational wealth, right? That long-term wealth, that cash flow. And it's through wholesaling that gives you the power to get to that point, especially if you're somebody like us that didn't have money when we started. So now I have a portfolio of rental properties like you do. I'm owner financing. That's our true passion right now, is providing that pathway to home ownership. So I own 9 notes, and we're getting ready to close on a couple more next week.
Nice.
So providing that dream of home ownership is our purpose, our passion. But it all started with getting really good at finding off-market properties and providing solution for sellers,
right?
And then building a network of buyers that are looking for the properties that we get under contract.
Right.
And so that's the core of any successful real estate investment firm, if you ask me.
Right. Same. Exactly. If you don't have that, it's like, and that's why I said, everyone, you got to start somewhere. So it's not necessarily a bad business model. You got to start somewhere. Some people, maybe they just don't have, they're working full time. They're, engineer, or, I don't know, lawyer, whatever they got going on. And they really are relying on a wholesaler to bring them deals and whatnot. But I do feel at some point you got to get in the game, and you got to build out a part of your foundation where you have that deal flow coming in. Because if you're always relying on some sort of exogenous factor, right, then what if that thing that's out there doesn't show up for you? Then now you're at the mercy of that, right? And you want to be able to control, again, that deal flow that's really coming into your business. So I love that. Now let's really quick transition to so wholesaling is a great way to get started in real estate investing. But remember also, a part of this episode is really how can people get started in real estate investing, right? Wholesaling Absolutely. Is definitely one way. But what are some other ways that people can look at creatively getting involved, or just jumping into the game without necessarily, I don't have 50 grand in the bank, or I can't go to the bank, to get a loan. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So, I mean, dude, the people if they're listening to this podcast, obviously you're learning what wholesaling is. Right. So this podcast if this is your first introduction to wholesaling, dude, this is just one little piece of the wholesaling world. If you get on YouTube, you get on any podcast platform, and you just search wholesaling, there's so much information out there, dude. That's how we got really good, or I found out about wholesaling, was YouTube University. It was podcasts. It was buying books on what wholesaling is. You have to educate yourself, right? And so not just educating yourself and getting into the analysis paralysis, but you got to also take action. And one of the things I do want to point out before we go too much further is for the people out there that are wholesaling right now, yes, you want to have that mindset of I am a real estate investor and I want to build long-term wealth. However, you don't want to spread yourself too thin, right? So one of the things that one of my coaches told me at the beginning of last year is he said, I want you to really focus this year on one thing. And the acronym he used for focus was follow one course until successful.
Sweet.
So we got really, really, really good at finding off-market properties, negotiating with sellers, getting them under contract, and then building our buyers list and assigning those deals last year. And we went from $300,000 in revenue in 2020 to $1.3 million in revenue last year.
Oh,
so
I love it.
7-figure growth. But here's the most important thing is by me getting really, really focused in that one area, which, like I said, is the core of real estate investing. It provided opportunities that I didn't even think about, right? So when you get really good at one thing, opportunities are going to present itself where it's needed. So that's where owner finance came into play, right? That's where creative finance and all of my rentals that I took down last year, all 9 of them, were on creative finance deals where the sellers were willing to hold a note. But if I didn't get really good at contacting sellers and getting on the phone, the opportunity wouldn't be there.
Absolutely.
So now I got cash flow in 2 different areas, and I have also assets, equity over here in notes, and I got equity and appreciation in these physical properties on my rentals. And so I've started building this long-term wealth, right? That's going to it's going to surpass me, and it's going to carry on to my family, and hopefully it'll surpass my kids into my grandkids.
Nice. Amazing. And guys, I know you might hear some of these some of the lingo and jargon and real estate stuff here. And if you're new to real estate investing and you're wondering what the heck does it mean for a seller to hold the note? Like I thought note was like what you hear music or a note you might write to someone. Why are they holding a note, right? We're going to teach a lot of these things, especially getting started for sure.
That's a whole episode in itself, dude.
Yeah, that's a whole episode in itself, right? So, but yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, guys, I know I'll share one way that is a very unique strategy that I think people maybe overlook, and it's the partnership method. And I think one of the things that I always teach my students is that I will always value 50% of a watermelon rather than 100% of a grape. And I think a lot of times we get involved into an industry, we want to just get it all myself and get it all in my mind, but we don't really see the value of partnering and partnerships. So if one way that I think that is unique, now, of course, you've heard about wholesaling. That is one way you can get started in real estate investing. Like go on YouTube, go check it out, connect with us. We'll share as much information as you need to learn about how you can get your foot in the door in wholesaling. But another way too is just simply finding someone who is doing what it is that you want to be doing in your area. Someone that you know that is successful, that is killing it, that's crushing it. It's so funny, and I'm not trying to sound boastful as in, I'm just, so amazing, crushing. But I feel like I've been able to create some nice success for my business and myself and my family. But
Absolutely.
It's funny because I'll have people, one of my students literally today just told me, because I was encouraging them to, do branding and get on social media and really tell people what you're doing, because people can't help you if they don't know how, right? So you got to get on social media, you got to share your journey, you got to create content, whatever. I encourage doing it. I don't want to say you have to, but anyway, but one of my students was like, they said, yeah, Myles, it was so interesting. I tagged you in one of my, Instagram stories and you reposted it. And then, I had like 5 or 6 people, that, friended me. And then one guy like reached out and was like, I see you're doing this thing with Myles and, what's this? I see you guys do. Da-da. And I just thought to myself, that person could have directly reached out to me probably, I don't know how long ago, but for whatever reason, they hesitate to ask. My mom always said, dude, a closed mouth never gets fed. Right. And if you never ask, the answer is always no. I mean, you can say it in so many different ways, but the reality is guys, find people in your area that are crushing it, that are doing well, that you see that are having success, and reach out to them. Figure out how you could add value to them. There's so many ways that you can partner with someone, whether it's finding deals that you can bring to them. Right. Well, there was a time where I actually had an opportunity where I wanted to do my first flip, but I was going to just partner with someone. And I just explained to them, I said, you know what? I can't even remember what the numbers were, but let's just say I had it under contract for 100,000, right? I could have assigned it for 135, 140,000, did 35, 40 grand, right? But I knew if I could actually buy this thing, renovate it, add value, forced appreciation, flip this thing, dude, would probably make $70,000, $80,000 on this thing, right? Obviously, now, would you rather take 30 or 70 or 80,000, right? If you could wait for the 70 or 80,000 all day, right? But the reality is I didn't have the resources necessarily, I didn't have the private money, I didn't have the contractors and the whole team, the systems to just go ahead and pull that trigger. So I explained to that individual, I said, hey, you know what? Instead of assigning it to you with a $30,000, $40,000 on top right from the get-go, how about we partner it together? Because I can get this deal for you at the price that I have it under contract right now. Just kind of show me, and I'll help manage the construction if you need someone to lay eyes on it. You're busy doing it, so I'll go over there. I'll do all of that. Just show me how this is done. But I'll actually just we can go into this deal together at the $100,000 at the purchase price, the wholesale price that I have, instead of marketing up. Anyway, that's one creative aspect of how you could partner with someone, and that's not even that's not even partnering with the seller. And there's one last thing I'll say. You could even partner with the seller themselves. There are times where a seller might be open to you actually partnering with them in a way. This is really cool, guys. So let's say you had to buy the house at $100,000 and it needed $50,000 of work. So minus closing costs and roads fees, all those other things. But let's just say purchase price and rehab would be all in $150,000, right? But what if you didn't have to buy the property? What if you could actually just partner with the seller and say, hey, you know what? I know you're trying to sell this house right now. Maybe you're struggling a little bit to sell this house, but I know if this thing was fully renovated and market value, you would sell this thing like that and you'd get topped. You get even more money. So you know what? How about we don't even talk about negotiating a price to try and buy your property because it needs this repair, needs that repair. How about we just go into this together? How about I fund all the renovation cost and the renovation, and we partner together and we list it on the market once it's renovated. So now, guys, all you have to do is come up with the renovation money instead of the $150,000. Now you only need to come up with maybe the 40 or 50, right? And obviously the numbers can change in different ways. Maybe you only need 20 grand to renovate, and it's $100,000 purchase price. 120,000 is way more than just coming up with 20 grand or maybe 15, whatever the numbers are. But that's a way that you can even partner and get creatively into this game as well. So anyway, these are just some strategies that we're just throwing out there, guys.
Yeah, and those strategies, require a little bit of money or knowing the right people too as well. If you don't have the money and you don't know the people, like I said, you're listening to this podcast, get on YouTube, get on Apple Podcasts, Google, podcasts or whatever, and find the people that are in your area that are doing it and they're doing it big, right? And then reach out to them, go knock on their door, see if they'll let you shadow them for a couple hours or a day. I got a couple people coming in my office to shadow me next week.
Yep.
So just to kind of see what we do.
Nice.
Let's take it beyond that. Go offer to work for them for free.
There you go.
To learn, right? Because if you go to school, you're going to have to pay.
Right.
But if you offer to get in the trenches, there's nothing better than a hands-on learning experience, right?
Right.
So go offer to work for them for free. Now, most of them probably won't let you work for them for free. Maybe they'll let you, take an acquisitions position or something like that, where you can get in there, or cold calling or whatever. But I'm sure they'll compensate you for their time, right? For your time. So there's a multitude of different ways to get started in wholesaling. Right. And I'm a big believer in buying speed. And what I mean by buying speed, it doesn't mean that you have to spend a lot of money. But if there's somebody's doing something that I want to do, I'm gonna try to figure out a way to get in touch with them, or the person that runs their organization, or the big wig in their organization. Go meet them and offer to work for them, offer to volunteer, offer to do whatever I can to learn what they're doing, because obviously they're doing something right.
Right.
Why reinvent the wheel?
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense. So it's so easy to get started in wholesaling. You just gotta take action, make the commitment, find the people around you that are successful, and do it.
Yeah.
You don't need money. You don't need anything.
That's simple.
As long as I had gas in my car,
right,
and I had my phone, with a camera.
Yeah. I
was out driving around looking for distressed properties.
Well, man, I don't know. These gas prices nowadays, we see.
That is true.
You might need to get a loan nowadays.
That is true.
It's crazy. But yeah, guys, it's absolutely so true. These are just a few things. We're just trying to get your mind to get creative outside the box of, okay, I don't have $50,000 cash. I can't go to the bank and get a mortgage. There's so many ways. Even the first thing, like Vaughn said, some of these strategies do kind of require you to, have some money and know something. But even that first strategy, that didn't require anything, right? When I added value to the investor, right? I told the investor, I'm not going to mark it up $40,000 for you to buy. How about we just go into this together? I already have the deal under contract. How about we just go into this deal together, and you just, whatever that profit is, you work it out, where maybe you can make a little bit more than what you would have done if you wholesaled it, right? But that person can make, obviously, their deal without having to, pay $40,000 marked up right up front. And, there's just creative ways that you can do that. But also in a strategic way, if we're talking about real estate investing strategies, wholesaling is a strategy. But there's some other ways that you could obviously get involved in real estate as well. And one of those ways, Vaughn talked about a little bit earlier, is owner financing. It's so funny. I had a conversation with Vaughn earlier today, and I talked about how, man, it is crazy how the amount of money I paid to buy my first rental property. There are so many people that will spend that same amount of money buying a brand new car, when they probably really even shouldn't, right? Because right out the door, the car is going to cost it literally, a car just it sucks money out of your bank account, unless you're going to do, Turo or, Uber, and you're going to try and turn that into a, which that's still just, really is eating up a lot of, mileage, and there's a lot of maintenance to that. But just right out the door, when you buy a car, you got your car payment, you got your insurance, you got maintenance, you got gas, there's just money, right? And I was able to buy my first rental property with only $4,000. $4,000. And I know people who buy a car have to put $5,000 down, or $6,000 down. And
I have 9 rental properties. You know how much money I have invested in those 9 rental properties between purchase and repair to get them rent ready, and they're all occupied now.
Gosh, I'm scared. I don't know.
Less than $20,000.
Oh, come on, man! I wish I had a bell to ring.
Because I bought them all on terms where where the seller was willing to carry the note for me, seller financed it to me, and they're all cash flowing.
Yep, absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. And we're going to touch on, and that's why we're not going to go too in depth right now, because we want you guys to come back on the next episode so you guys can learn and hear. And we also don't want to keep you guys on for super, super, super long. But we're going to talk about the strategies. We're going to talk about what is owner financing. We're going to talk about who to look for. What are some great owner financing, avatars or candidates, that generally are open to owner financing, subject to. We haven't even got into things with people with, owner financing generally works with a house that has no mortgage. It's free and clear so they can finance it too. But we're not even talking about properties that have a mortgage. What about if they have a mortgage on the property and you could take overpayment? I mean, there's so many creative strategies and ways that you can get involved in real estate investing without just having $50,000 or $100,000 in the bank to go buy something cash or go to the bank to go get a loan, right? So anyway.
Absolutely. And it all starts, though, with the art of finding off-market deals, and that's where wholesaling starts. So you have to get out there and you have to do the work.
Yes.
And you have to get really good at reaching out to people, finding properties, talking to sellers, building rapport, getting them to know, like, and trust you, and then coming up with a win-win solution.
I love it. That's it, man. That is it. So guys, really quick, while we wrap up here, we are actually, Vaughn and I are always talking about how can we just like add value to this experience and just, create ways for you guys to even engage with us. So one of the things that we are really implementing is really like answering questions live. Sometimes we'll just answer questions that we get from either social media. Some people email us or, send us a DM or a message and we'll answer it and kind of shout them out, whatnot. But we actually have an individual who is going to be calling in or actually answering their question live. And Vaughn and I have no idea what the question is, but they were open and definitely welcome enough to jump on and ask their question. And we want to do that more. We want to know that you guys are, reaching out, asking questions, getting out of your comfort zone, stretch yourself, challenge yourself, reach out to us, connect with us, ask your questions so we can help you and guide you. We're not trying to say we know everything and we're perfect, but, we have a lot of experience in what we've been able to do. We want to just share through our experiences and give you guys some perspectives to kind of help you out. So, Vaughn, I don't know if you want to share some things while I reach out, but we're going to be bringing on a gentleman by the name of Quinn who has a question in real estate. And like I said, again, we have no idea what his question is, but we are excited and more than happy to answer. And hopefully we can. Hopefully we have an answer for him.
Yeah, and why you call Quinn, the biggest thing, if you only take one thing from this podcast today, take action. I see so many people that are still sitting there doing nothing that 3.5 years ago when I got started, they said they want to get into wholesaling.
Oh, man.
3.5 years ago, and they're still in the same spot. So.
Oh, yeah. If nothing changes, guys. It is that simple. Yep. But, hey, we got Quinn on. Hey, Quinn, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir. We can. Hey, Vaughn, can you hear him?
I can. Quinn, what's going on, baby?
Hey, I'm chilling, man. I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you hopping on. And like I said, man, we're just keeping it simple. We just wanted to bring you on, and we knew you had a question, and hopefully we can add some value and answer your question today, man. What do you got for us?
Absolutely. So I actually just came across this deal maybe 4 days ago. So there's a house that's in Greenville. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family residence. And I'm basically going back and forth with the owner. I want to try to do owner financing on the property. And my goal with the property would be it does need some rehab, so I would fix it up. And I would be looking to hold it as a long-term rental. So the terms that we're bouncing around at right now with the owner, he came in at $2,000 a month at first, at a $90,000 price. So that was a little bit too high for me. So I'm trying to get him to agree to do $1,000 a month. And so my thing right now is I can do the owner financing, but I'm also trying to figure out how I'm going to fund the rehab. So I think the rehab should be maybe like $25,000 to $35,000. And although I could just use my own funds to do so, I've been looking into, doing private money to fund the rehab, kind of like alternative lending. And I wanted to kind of get your feedback on this deal, basically.
Yeah. Well, before we go into really quick, let's just make sure we understand the terms. So right now, the terms that you have is the seller is asking for a purchase price of $90,000. And what is the term length?
So, well, that's what we're trying to do. So, at 90,000, if we were to agree, on about 1,000 a month, that would be a 90-month term, basically. But I'm not sure if he's.
So this
down. First, he came in at 2,000, and I think he's just doing that month over month without there's no interest, there's no down payment.
Okay.
Wow. So just so everyone understands this is a deal where there is a seller just wants 90,000. So they're married to a purchase price 90,000 and apparently married to a monthly payment. So 2,000 a month. They don't really care about interest. They don't want, they don't really necessarily care about a down payment. I mean, this is a zero down, zero interest kind of deal. Purchase price 90,000 and just 2,000 a month. So that's kind of where we're at with this.
All right,
I don't know, Vaughn, if you want to say stuff to
yeah,
share.
I'm gonna chime in. A couple things. Well, first, I want to get terminology correct, right? So, terminology when we're looking at buying a property from a seller in our organization, we call that seller financing.
Okay.
When we're the owner of the property and we're financing it to somebody else, I call it owner financing. So you'll hear me use both terminologies. But just remember that if you're talking to a seller and they're considering financing the property to you, I call that seller financing. But if I'm the owner of the property and I'm financing to somebody else, I call it owner financing. So the question I have for you, Quinn, is this is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. What's the ARV on the property or after repair value?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be around 160.
Okay.
It's not too high, but and yeah, so
in
the area. The comparable. I'm looking at rent mainly.
Yeah, so that's gonna be my next question is what is the market rent for the property at 2-1 in that area?
On average, $1,100 a month.
Okay, so that's the problem right there because he's asking for $2,000 a month. So that's obviously you're paying for the property even when you have a tenant in there. So you're going to be behind the ball on the purchase agreement, and you're going to have to use your own money or go borrow money for the rehab, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. So this is the whole reason that I'm trying to jump on this deal. I'd like to give you guys feedback on this as well. Is so my credit score is not great. But I had a bankruptcy back in 2017. It was dismissed, but it's still on my credit score. So that's been pretty, even with FHA, very difficult to get traditional financing, and then hard money is obviously very expensive. So I'm trying to make the numbers work on this, even if I can get them to come down to 1,000 a month, and then maybe try to refinance or something like that down the line. I'm just trying to get my skin in the game, basically.
So how willing to work with you as a seller, Gwen?
I'd say pretty willing because I really, he's very much willing to work with me on this.
Is this his primary residence or is this a rental for him as well?
This is a secondary for him, so this is kind of an investment property.
Okay, so he understands that you're an investor as well and you need to make money, right?
Yes.
So I think you need to have a conversation with him because he knows what he's doing. And he knows that at $2,000 a month, you're not making any money. He knows that at $1,000 a month, you're not making any money. Yeah. Because what's going to happen is even at $1,000 a month, when you buy the property and you sign the paper, and I don't know what the down payment, he says no money down, right?
Right.
So even with no money down, when you close on the property, you're responsible for the taxes and insurance.
Right. So you're already in the negative.
Yeah. So bump that up another $150. So now you're at $1,150 just with your note at 0% interest plus taxes and insurance, and you haven't done any repairs to it yet.
Or maintenance or vacancies that you've included in that.
Yeah.
So one thing that I was going to say too is that and sometimes what happens is we're so eager to get into this game that sometimes we put ourselves at the mercy of the seller to where it's not a win-win. And one of the first things that I always talk about with sellers is, man, I love to be able to buy this house. I'd love to be able to make this deal work, but I just want to make sure it's a win-win for both of us. And I already just out the gate, just clear the
absolutely.
This needs to be a win-win for everyone, because if not, there's really what's called there's really like a barrier. There's a conflict of interest, right? When you're talking to a seller, they want to make as much money as they want to make. right?
Yep.
And then you want to be able to a lot of times buy at the lowest price that you can, right? And there's already this conflict of interest where you guys aren't meeting together. So what I like to try and do is tell a seller, I want to give you what it is that you want out of this, but I want it to be a win-win. So if I can't, like, let's say a seller, let's just talk about that rental property, the rental property that we were talking about earlier, Vaughn, that first rental property that I ever bought. This is how the terms worked on this one. So this seller had a tenant in the property that was not paying rent. Okay. And he lived out of state in Oregon. And this tenant was supposed to be paying him, I think it was somewhere around $600, $700 a month, something like that. But long story short, what I did is I focused on the problem, right? Now that's another thing that's important. Is sometimes if you just talk to a seller about numbers, you might have a hard time getting to a solution, because if you're focusing on finding a solution for their problem, it might actually work out in your favor, right? And here's how I did it. So the problem that this seller had is he had a tenant that was not paying rent. So he's bleeding out money. So I'm like, man, I would love to do this deal. I want to make this deal work. Now, he wanted $90,000 cash for the property. I already knew, based on ARV, which is after repair value, the value that if you renovated the property, it should sell for on the market, that was going to be too tight for a cash deal. So I said, look, if I can't get my price cash, I will do your price, but can you work with me on terms? So you see how now I'm already starting to do this sort of let's do a win-win type of thing. So he said, sure, what are your terms? And I said, well, honestly, I'd like to do an $85,000 purchase price, but what I'd love to do is your tenant hasn't been paying you for how many months? And he told me, I think it was like 4 or 5 months, basically a total to be around $3,600 or $3,500 or something like that, around $3,000 something dollars. So I just rounded and I said, how about this? How about I just give you all the money the tenant hasn't been paying you up front at closing as a down payment? Boom. Now I worked out a down payment that's in his favor based off of the problem that he had, not based on the money he wants. It was the money that I want, because the down payment was only $4,000, but it was solving his problem that he didn't have payments coming in for that amount of time. Now he's just going to be made whole. Now it's going to be like that almost never happened, right? Because now he's just going to get all that at closing, right? So then now we're at a purchase price of $85,000. Now we have a down payment of $4,000. What do we have left, right? We have the interest and then we have the term. So I wanted it to be a 30-year note, but he said, no. I don't want to wait 30 years. I want to do a 15-year. That's it. I just want 15 years. And I go, okay, that's fine. Well, we'll do 15 years, but can you work with me on the interest then? Because I'm already coming to closing, paying off everything your tenant hasn't been paying you, right? You're going to get a purchase price that you wanted, right? But can you work with me on the interest at least? So I was kind of being a little, if that's the right word, a little bullish on it, a little aggressive. And I said, can you give me 0.5% interest? I said, hey, we're already on a good track. Maybe he'll work with me. And he goes, dude, you got to be kidding me. There's no way. So I said, all right, well, at least let's just do 1.5%, because that puts my payments at. Now, notice I said just 0.5 because I just knew it didn't matter. That was going to be amazing. But I knew I wasn't going to get 0.5. So I said, let's do 1.5 because, so I didn't just ask, but I asked because I want this to be a win-win. I said, because the payments are going to be X, because the market rent is X. So I'm just being straight up honest with him and letting him know. Yeah, I'm letting him know, like, dude, I can't go up if the rents are $950 a month or $1,000 a month. I can't be all in $700, $800. Dude, when you put in vacancies, maintenance, taxes.
Let me ask you a quick question on that, Myles. Is when you asked for, you wanted a 30-year amortization on that one, right?
Yeah.
Right. And was the payments on the 30-year amortization, would they work for you?
And I was going to do a balloon at 15, but
yeah.
he didn't even want to do a balloon. He's just like, I want 15. I don't know. It was weird. He just wanted to have. Gotcha. And here's what I realized, and this is actually something I learned later on. I was actually okay with being on a 15-year amortization schedule. Again, if I want it to be a win-win.
Oh, yeah.
I could give him the 15-year amortization and I could still make cash flow, because the tenant that was supposed to be paying him was supposed to be paying him like $650 or $700. That property was pretty much rent ready. I just did some paint.
Yeah.
Stuff. I put a new tenant there for $950 a month. And here's the crazy thing. That property is going to be paid off even faster because it's on a 15-year schedule instead of 30-year. So I was actually cool with that. But yeah, Quinn, I think the key to this right now is two things. Number one, you want to put it out there. Hey, man, I want this to work for you, but also me too. Let's make this a win-win. Let's both come out of this on the same playing field, win-win situation. But then the second thing is, and it just is what it is. And I know sometimes we want to, I don't know. It's kind of like that girl you just want to go after, and dude, she's not trying to have it, man. She don't like you. You know, she doesn't like you. You just got to let it go, right? You can't force, you know, I learned this in sales a long time ago. A person convinced against their will has the same opinion still, right? We're not trying to convince people, right? Right. So I think the reality is if this just isn't a deal for seller financing, it's just not a deal for seller financing. Just be patient and wait for a deal to make that happen.
What makes this deal work? If it's no money down, no interest.
Hey, Quinn.
Yeah, I think Vaughn's about to.
Yeah, Quinn.
At that point.
Here, I do a lot of these. So here's the first thing is, you know, the guy, if he's a landlord and he's an investor and he has any sense whatsoever, he's going to know that you need the cash flow in this for it to make sense. How much money do you plan to put in this, and how long is the rehab going to take before you can rent it out?
I mean, for rehab, I think about 6 months. Let's see, for the rehab, I think it'll cost maybe 25 to 35, give or take.
Okay, so let's say 35. So you're at 125,000 all in, right?
Yeah.
How much is that 35,000 going to cost you in interest?
Well, that's if I get a loan on that, and it depends on where I get that money from. So I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, so let's assume you get it at 35,000 at 10% interest, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So we take 35,000 times 10% is what, $3,500?
Yep.
Divide that by 12. So you're paying almost $300 a month.
Yeah.
In interest, and that's not even including if somebody decides to charge you points, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So now you have, if he's staying at that 1,000, you're at $1,300 a month for 6 months with no income coming in.
Yeah.
Right. So either way, it's not making any sense. So what I would do is, if you think it's going to take you 6 months to rehab that property to get it rent ready, I would first go to the seller and explain that to him. Say, listen, Mr. Seller, this is going to take me 6 months to get ready. So obviously, you know, I understand that you need to be getting payments during this time. But $1,000 a month is way too steep because, you know, I'm not getting any income. So are you willing to work with me at least in the first 6 months? Ideally, I need to be cash flowing even after I get a tenant in this property. And you know as well as I do that the market rent for this property is $1,100 a month. So still, me paying you $1,000 a month after the 6 months still doesn't make sense. Yeah. How about you give me 12 months or even 18 months, and let's come up with a figure that makes sense for you and still allows me to at least break even, maybe not cash flow, but at least break even. And then, Quinn, on your end, you have to be confident that, one, you're going to be able to finish the rehab in at least 6 months. 2, you're going to be able to get a tenant in there. And 3, you're going to be able to get a good quality tenant that's going to pay consistently for the next 6 to 12 months. Because what you want to do is put yourself in a position where in 12 to 18 months, you can go back and refinance that property, pay Mr. Seller off, and have a 4%, 5% interest rate and be cash flowing very well. So that's the conversation you have to have with Mr. Seller and say, Mr. Seller, I understand you're an investor as well. This is an income producing property for you. Obviously, there's a reason you're interested in selling this, and you're willing to give me terms is because you appreciate the cash flow. And by you seller financing this property to me, you get the benefits of being a landlord without the headaches. So you no longer have to worry about taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, tenants, taxes, or toilets. Okay. And in return for that, I'm asking you that you give me a lower rate or a lower monthly payment for the first 18 months while I fix this property up and put a tenant in it. And then after 18 months, even see if you can talk them into 2 years, I'll refinance you out and pay off your entire, $90,000.
Yeah, good. That's a good strategy.
Damn.
Yeah, that actually might work. So, yeah, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.
My pleasure.
We'll send you an invoice tomorrow, probably around 2:00. No, I'm just kidding. Nah, man, we love to help out, and
yeah, man. Yeah, this is what my guys do all day long. we do creative offers. Like every offer that we make, and this is important for everybody that's wholesaling or going after sellers or whatever, is we don't just make a cash offer.
Right.
Okay. We make every letter of intent that we send out has 3 offers on it: a cash offer and 2 seller finance offers. And by just giving them options, they don't feel like they're being backed into a corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing. And for me, I'll much rather them take one of those seller finance offers than the cash offer all day long. And my seller finance offers are always much more than the cash offer.
Oh yeah. You can pay more because you're paying over time. So it really helps.
And so the biggest thing is is educating the seller on the benefits of holding the note. And most of the time, if the property is owner occupied or the seller lives there and that's their primary residence, it's going to be tough to create that seller finance deal where they're willing to hold the note because they need that money to move or put a down payment somewhere else. But most of the people that we're talking to are absentee owners or landlords, and they love the cash flow. They just don't like being landlords.
Right.
So if you can give them the best of both worlds, it's a win-win.
And it's basically gutted, right? So, like I said, it needs rehab. And I think, he could put the money in to rehab it and rent it out, but like you said, I don't think he wants the headache of dealing with the rehab and then also dealing with a regular tenant, So it might make sense for them to do the seller financing, like you mentioned.
So you're solving a problem, right? You're giving him the best of both worlds. He gets the cash flow, but he doesn't have to worry about it because he's the bank. He just gets that deposit in his account every month or that check in the mailbox money.
And he's chilling. Yeah.
Yep.
That's how it works. Well, heck yeah. Well, hey, Quinn, thank you so much for hopping on, my man. And dude, we will, I'll have Vaughn connect with you and just keep us updated, man. We'd love to know how that deal works out and how it plays out, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Our pleasure.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Super cool, man. Absolutely love it. Love it. Dude, I love doing stuff like that. I mean, we should honestly maybe
awesome.
In every episode we just bring someone on at the end and just hey, how can we help, man? This is we're like the hotline, real estate hotline. Every time we do
absolutely. And the creative finance and stuff is right in my wheelhouse. That's what I love to do. So,
oh yeah.
We do that all day long.
Heck yeah. Because even like you said, I mean, there's just so many ways to help people with creative finance. Because even you said it is a little bit more difficult if the person's living there because they're going to need some money to move and things like that. But what's crazy is like that Anderson deal, man, they were living in the property. But what I ended up saying is what money, what do you guys need to be able to move to the other house? Sometimes if you just ask the right questions, it's like, okay, maybe they're thinking they need to sell this house so that they can use some of that money to be able to buy another because they need, I don't know, 20 grand, 30 grand down payment, or maybe some move, whatever. But what if you could just figure out what it is that they want and then maybe they need $15,000, $20,000 to do everything. Okay, well then maybe that's just the down payment. So instead of you having to come up with $180,000 or $200,000 or $150,000, whatever it is, now you're just coming up with what it is that they need. You're solving that solution and then they can finance the rest.
And that's why it's so important to build relationships.
Yes.
Get them to know, like, and trust you, because that's when the real reason, the true motivation of them wanting to sell the house is going to come out. And that's what I tell my guys, my acquisitions team. They're not even allowed to make an offer on the first call.
Love that.
They have to spend at least 15 minutes on the call, building rapport, building that relationship, getting them to know, like, and trust them. So breaking those barriers down. So they can get down to the real motivation, the real reason why they are wanting to sell that house and willing to sell it for a discount. Nice.
Well, man, I think this was awesome. I think we're wrapping up here close to an hour. So I think we have a lot of amazing content on this one. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to share? I think this was
dude, I got so much I want to share, but this is only episode 2, dude. We got to save some of it.
Is there anything else on episode 2? Yeah, no. We're going to I don't know. We'll probably be on episode 585, but no, yeah. I think this one was jam-packed. This one was awesome. So, guys, we're going to wrap it up in here. If you have questions, again, reach out to us. And Vaughn, where can people reach out and ask us questions or connect with us?
Yeah, man. So now the podcast is live on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can listen to podcasts. You can go in there and put your comments. Please rate us and review us because obviously that allows us to move up in the listings. But also we have a YouTube channel, Flip Your Life REI on YouTube, and then we have a Facebook page, Flip Your Life REI on Facebook. So reach out. ask your questions, like our pages, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And, we're going to keep them coming.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Awesome, man. Well, that wraps up, guys, episode number 2. And we're excited to come back again next week with another episode on how we can flip your life. Peace.
All right, guys.
Can't stop, won't stop. Where the brakes at? I give him that diddy bop. Like, take that, take that, take that, take that. I'ma put in work. I'ma do that ASAP.